Welcome to HU Trading Basics series. The topic of today will be options basics. The reason I wanted to shoot this video is to simplify options for all you guys, because when looking up online sometimes the explanations are too complex and I would like to explain them like I would do to a 5-year-old, break it down to the basics, and that's why we are here today. Alright, so let's begin. What are options? Well, as the name suggests, they are financial contracts that allow the buyer of the contract to choose if he wants the contract obligation to be fulfilled. What does that mean? It means that when the time comes for the contract obligations to take place, the buyer has the option to go forward with it or not. But for this option, the buyer has to pay the seller a fee. That's called the premium. So the fee that the buyer pays the seller, that allows him the freedom to go on with the obligations at the time when the contract needs to be fulfilled. There are two types of them: calls and puts. We will go in the future slides on what each of these are, what calls are, what puts are, and you will realize that the combination of calls and puts can allow you to create a lot of different trading styles with options. I will simply focus on the basic ones in this video. Any option will be defined by 3 factors. Those will be what the option is on, right? For example, if the option is on stock like Apple, then that would be the identity of the option. If it is on oil, then that would be a different kind of option. The second thing is when the option expires, aka the date when the financial obligation, the contract obligation, needs to be fulfilled. And the third would be strike price. I will explain strike price in the next slide. An example of the option would be something like Apple August 20. August 20 is the expiration date, Apple is the underlying, and strike is 100. Alright, so now I will explain what strike is, what a call option is, and then we can see how to proceed from that. So a person who buys a call option, he has the optionality. He can choose to purchase a certain amount of the underlying. Underlying can be a stock, it can be a commodity. Let's take the example of Apple in this case. So he will have the option to buy a specific amount of Apple from the seller of the option on the date mentioned on the option, that's the expiration date, at the strike price. So now you know why the strike price is important. That's the price where the buyer of the call option will get to purchase his underlying if he wants to. If he chooses not to, that's his right. That's the reason he paid the seller of the option a fee at the start. So in our case, let's say the price of Apple right now is 95. And the expiration is August 20. The strike price is 100. So as August 20 comes, the person who bought the option, he has the opportunity to buy it from the seller at $100. Now, when would it be advantageous to buy it at $100? Only when the price of Apple is more than $100 on expiration. If the price of Apple on expiration is $105, then it would be profitable for the buyer of the option to buy Apple at $100 from the seller and then sell it in the market for $105, making a quick $5. So let's say the initial fee that the buyer had to pay the seller was $2 per option. So $2 an option ends up being $200 in cost because option price is $2, but each option has 100 stocks in it. So that's why the option price ends up being the actual value that we have to pay ends up being the option price multiplied by 100. So initially, if Apple stays below $100, there is no advantage in the buyer of the call option to take the purchase at $100, right? Because the market is selling less than $100. If it's at 95, then I would rather buy in the market. Why would I buy it from the seller of the option? So if at expiration, Apple stays below $100, then we just lose the fee that we paid initially, which was $200. So you see, that will be our loss. But if Apple goes above $100, then it's beneficial for us to buy it from the seller of the option and then sell it in the market. So let's say Apple is at $105. So I will purchase the stock at $100, sell it in the market for $105, and this is 100 stocks per option. So that would net me $500 in profit. And I paid a value of $200, the initial fee to the seller. So my total profit will be something around $300. So that should give you an idea that the call option price increases as the stock goes up. Alright, so an option has two kinds of values. One is its intrinsic value, one is the extrinsic value. What do these two mean? The intrinsic value is the value that the option has if it expires at this moment. So when Apple is below $100, it has zero intrinsic value because if it expired at this moment, then there's no advantage in me purchasing the stock from the seller of the option. I would rather buy in the market for less than $100. The intrinsic value, if Apple was above $100, let's say at 105, then the intrinsic value of the option right now would be $5. What is the extrinsic value? Extrinsic value is the value the option derives from the time factor. If there's time left till expiration, then the stock still has a chance to go above the expiration, the strike price, right? That probability, the odds assigned to that is the extrinsic value. So let's say Apple is at 95 right now, but it won't expire for 100 more days. So it has enough possibility to go above $100 per share price. And that possibility, the value we assign to it, is called the extrinsic value. So these are the two factors that affect the value of an option. What's a put option? Put option allows the buyer of the put to sell a specific amount of the stock to the seller of the put. Again, at strike price and at expiration. When will the buyer of the put exercise this? When will he take this option to sell a certain amount of stock to the seller? He would take that option if the stock price was below the strike price on expiration. Why? So let's say in this case, we have $100 again as the expiration, as the strike price, and Apple was right now selling in the market for 95, aka below 100. So the buyer of the put would buy it in the market for $95 and then sell it to the seller at $100 because that's the strike price, making a $5 profit in the middle. So the buyer of the put will only exercise it if the stock price is below the strike price on expiration. By that sense, you should understand that the value of the put will keep increasing if the stock price keeps getting lower, because the profit the buyer of the put makes depends on how much the stock price is below the strike price. If you guys are getting confused by what strike price is, it's just the specific price at which the buyer and seller will make the deal if the buyer of the option chooses to. The concept of intrinsic value and extrinsic value are the same for the put option. So by this time you understand what a call option is, what a put option is, and based on how they are defined, you're starting to understand what would affect the price of an option, what would affect the price of that contract. It has to be the stock price on which the contract is. In case of Apple, the stock price of Apple will affect the price of the option. The time left till expiration. Because the time left till expiration, the more time we have, the more the chances of the option to be profitable. Because let's say Apple is at 95 right now, if we have 100 days on it, then it has a higher chance of going above $100 versus if we had 2 days on it. So an option with more time left till expiration will have higher extrinsic value. And the last factor is the implied volatility. Now, what does implied volatility mean? It's how volatile we expect the stock price to be in the future. The more volatile it is, the more chances of the stock to become profitable. If let's say Apple is moving $10 a day, compared to if it was moving $2 a day, there's a higher chance when it's moving $10 a day that it will go above $100 and be profitable. So that's why the implied volatility affects the option price. Now, is there a way to figure out the exact implied volatility? No, because it does not depend on historical volatility. The way it's figured out in the options world is through the market prices at which the options are traded, and then some iterative methods with it. We will concern ourselves with it at a later stage. Just remember, these are the three factors that affect the option price. All these three are studied along with the option price. It's called Greeks that we use to define them mathematically. There will be another video on the Greeks soon, but this one is just a simplified explanation of what options are.